continue with more the same analysis, but with more independent variables. The method is called multiple ANOVA or MANOVA. Here M means multiple, but both in SPSS and in PSP, MANOVA does not exist, but there is another option, and this option is SPSS. In SPSS is called general linear model, and then univariate. In PSPP, this option is called directly. I will use again optimism as dependent variable. So I will move optimism to the field dependent variable. I will use again Mediator status as one factor, and again I will add sex as second factor, and then I will press OK. Okay. And here in the results, here in this table, we can see Mediator status in this row. After that, sex row. But after that, here we have Mediator status by sex. And the question is why? To answer that question, I will show here picture. Because this do you hear me?
Yes, with some interruptions, but yes, we can hear you, but there are some interruptions in the last few minutes. It started to be...
Okay.
But now it's fine.
Okay. So this row, Mediator status by sex, is for checking of hypothesis for interaction between factors. For interaction,
we cannot see the picture. Maybe sharing
independent variables. So before. Okay, now. Do you see the screen? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
So before before analysis of relation between each factor and the result, we must be sure that there is no relation between factors, or we must there is no interaction between factors. Because if there is interaction between factors, this could cause misleading results. This could cause a wrong conclusion. And I will give here two examples. First is the so-called indirect impact. And this is the example for indirect impact. That means that factor 1 is factor for the factor 2, and factor 2 is the factor for the result. Then between factor 1 and the result, there is relation, but this relation is not direct. This relation is indirect. And for example, would you say, is there a relation between education and salary?
Yes, usually there is.
Yes, yes, but the second question is the relation between education and salary direct?
It's more via qualifications.
Yes, it is.
Sorry? Please repeat again.
Yes, I think it is a direct relation because according to the law and according to the, these numbers for qualifications that are pointing out the степен на образование, просто в момента не се...
Educational level.
The educational level, you have this number and you can do certain positions and you can be not qualified for certain positions, and mainly we're talking about the higher up positions in the organizational hierarchy.
Okay, that means that the working position is this factor 2, and increasing of education will increase the working position, and increasing of working position will increase the salary. So this is indirect impact, and factor 2 is called mediator or mediator variable. So the relation between factor 1 in our education and a result in our example salary exists, but this relation is not direct. And if we test the hypothesis for a relation between factor 1 and the result, there will be a relation, but this relation is indirect relation. This was the first example. The second is the so-called third reason. That means that factor 1 is factor for the result, but factor 1 is factor for the factor 2. And in this case, factor 2 is not a factor for the result. But since both factor 2 and result are results from this factor 1, between them maybe will be a relation. Here, it is possible here to obtain a relation, but this relation is false. If we make conclusion that there is relation between factor 2 and result, this conclusion will be wrong. So before separate analysis of relation between each factor and the result, we need to test hypothesis about the interaction between factors. And here, in this row, we get significance level is 46.6%. This is larger than 5%. That means that we must accept the null hypothesis, and that means that there is not relation, there is not interaction between factors. And if there is not relation between factors, then we analyze each factor separately. But if there is a relation or interaction between factors, then we must remove some factors. And we remove a factor according to the value in this column, in the column type 3, sum of squares, and we remove first this factor, lowest value in this column. So if there was a relation, interaction between factors, then we had to remove Marischal, no Marischal status. We had to remove first gender, because this value is smaller than other. But why it is smaller? Do you know what is 12? That means that this value is is 3.64 multiplied by 10 10 in power minus 12. And that means that the correct number is 0.0000011 zeros. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 6, 3, 6, 4. So this number 0.0000 is smaller than 179.06. So if there was interaction between the factors, then we had to remove first 6 because the value in this column, type 3 sum of squares, is lowest. And when the number of factors is big, then we remove the first factor. Again, check interaction between other factors. If there are interactions, then must remove second factor, and again check the interaction between other factors, and so on and so on. We finished with independent factors only. This procedures stops when all factors are independent. In our case, 2 factors, marital status and gender, are independent, and we can analyze them separately. And we use again significance level. For the marital status, significance level is 23.4%. This is larger than 5%, and the conclusion is that there is no relation between marital status and other. And for the second factor, significance level is 100%. This is larger than 5%, and our conclusion will be that there also not a relation between gender and optimism. So it's very interesting that significance levels in SPSS are different from this in PSPP. In SPSS, for the marital status, significance level is 5.1%, and for gender is 91.3%. But in PSPP, the values are different. Maybe there are differences in the computing algorithms. I don't know. Okay. After test hypothesis of presence of relation for each factor separately, we must measure the strength of the relation. In SPSS, it could be done automatically. Here you can see additional column partial eta squared. In PSPP, there is no automatic option to obtain partial eta squared, but we can calculate manually. But before that, what does that mean, partial? We already know eta squared, but here we have partial. Partial means under the same conditions. So when we make interpretation of this coefficient here, we can see that 3.3% of the variance of the optimism are explained by Marischal status under the same condition, under the same conditions. That means that all other factors are constant. So in our case, 3.3% of the variance of optimism are explained by Marischal status under condition that sex is constant. And for the sex, 0%. 0% of the variance of the optimism are explained by sex under condition that Marischal status is constant. And here we have so-called multiple eta squared, like this. And here the number is the same, 5.4%, but the letter is different. The letter is R, but we mean here exactly eta squared. And this multiple eta squared measures the strength of relation between the dependent variable and all independent variables together. So here we can say that 5.4% of the variance of optimism are explained by Marischal status and gender together. As I said, in PSPP, there are not such numbers, but we can calculate them again by dividing of a type of 3 sum of squares to this one corrected, no corrected model, but by this one corrected total. So for the Marischal status, 179.06 divided by 8,513.02, and the result is 2.1%. That means that 2.1% of the variance of optimism by Marischal status under condition that gender is constant. And on the other hand, this number I will try to copy in the calculator. Okay, it is not possible. This number 0.000091011 divided by 8,513.02, the result is practically 0. So 0% of the variance of the optimism explained by the under condition that Marischal status is constant. So this is the way for the measuring of strength of the relation and strength of the relation separately for each factor, and for the multiple for the multiple eta squared, we have divided this one, corrected model, 459.79 divided by, again, corrected total, 8,513.02, and the result is 5.4%. I think this is the same in SPSS. Yes, this is the same, 5.4%. So 5.4% of the variance of the optimism are explained by the marital status and sex together. And this is the interpretation of the eta squared. In SPSS, we can make multiple comparisons. So we can make post hoc test, but in PSPP, this is not possible. And the post hoc tests for the multiple ANOVA are almost the same as post hoc test for the one-way ANOVA. There are slight differences, but these differences are not significant. And in the end, we can see again chart with two groups, males and females, and within group of males with different marital status, and also within the group of females with different marital status. And here we can compare different marital status within each group, but here we can compare both groups. We can compare males and females, and here we can see that in the group of males, sampling errors are very big, and this will lead to the acceptance of null hypothesis. So in the group of males, we can say that maybe there is not statistically significant differences pairwise between each group and all other groups. In the group of females, we can see here that maybe there is statistically significant difference between separated and without, but maybe between all other groups pairwise there are not statistically significant differences. Of course, we can check this with post hoc tests. So this is the same chart, but here we have changed the places of two factors. In the previous chart, here we have two groups, males and females, and different marital statuses within these two groups. In the next chart, we have many groups, 8 groups for all Mediator statuses, and comparison between males and females within each group. You can use both charts, and you can choose one of them according to your purposes. If you want to present difference between Mediator statuses, this is the chart. If you want to present differences between males and females, this is the right chart. So I think this is all for this topic. Questions?
On my side.
Sorry?
I just said that I don't have questions.
I didn't hear you.
No questions from my side.
Okay, I will stop recording.